Hello everyone, this is Melanie from Melanie B's Creative Studio. I get a lot of questions about framing your own paint by number. So today that's what we're going to do, but we're also going to mount our piece on a canvas panel. So in this video, I'm going to cover a couple of different topics. You can also mount your piece to mat board, thick mat board. So the method I'm going to use to show you how to mount to a canvas panel would also work if you had mat board, which is less expensive. It's a little less sturdy. Either option you go with is going to work with a regular 16 by 20 frame. Now let me be clear, a poster frame is not the same thing as what I have in front of me. And I'm going to turn this over and we're going to look at this. And I know that the glass is probably going to glare pretty badly, but I want to show you. I got this frame from Amazon. Now, Michael's, because I used to work in the framing department, has amazing frames at amazing deals. So if that is where you would like to purchase your frames, that's fine. Hobby Lobby, any of the places that you find. I just happened to find this frame that I liked, and since I am pretty much stuck at home with no vehicle, I ordered it off Amazon. So I'm going to link you to this one and maybe a couple other options on Amazon, but you can also shop those other places. What I want to make sure that you're selecting is a frame with a piece of glass inside or a thick plexiglass. So poster frames usually have plexiglass and it's very thin. They won't hold the piece like I'm going to show you in this video. Okay, so let's look at this frame. It's beautiful. Now, it does have the step mat inside, so it's got this three-dimensional mat. I will not be using that, but by this having that piece inside tells me I'm going to have enough room to put my piece back in, and I will explain that once I'm done. But I'm going to save this mat for a future project because it has an 11 by 14 opening, which means my smaller shippers may fit this. I'm going to keep this, but I'm not putting it back in this frame with the piece I'm going to show you today. So let me show you everything we're going to be using today first, and then we're going to jump right in to the demonstration and tutorial part of this video. So I have the 16 by 20 frame, like you see here. Now, when you buy a 16 by 20 frame, remember the opening is not 16 by 20. The opening is actually 19.5 inches by 15.5 inches. So because there's a 1/4 inch lip of frame that goes over the edges of your piece, that's why we need our project to be a 16 by 20 in order to fit correctly in this frame. You're going to need canvas panels, either a 16 by 20 canvas panel or a 16 by 20 mat board that is fairly thick. Now I'm going to show you at the end of this video a piece that I did with mat board in the same technique that I'm going to show you today. So be staying tuned for that. All right, so I actually have a stack of 5 right here. These are from Michael's, and they had a good deal on their piece canvas panels, so I went ahead and got them. These are about, I think these were like $21 for 5 of them. So if you break that down, you're paying about $4.50, $4.25 a piece, which was not bad considering, you know, mounting your piece can cost a lot. So this also gives us a very strong surface. So the next item I have is a neutral pH adhesive. Now, you can use Elmer's glue for this, but before you do that, let me tell you why I use this kind when I have this. So this is pH neutral, and what does that mean? That means that there's no acid, there's no lignin, there's nothing in this glue that's going to deteriorate our piece over time. So it is archival, which is my first choice of any glue that I'm going to use. So basically, everything I'm using in this video and every other video I've shown you with mounting, they're all acid free. They're all lignin free. So, you know, using cardboard is adding acid to your piece. So that's why I don't use cardboard. Using wood, plywood, you guys, that's complete acid. It's all lignin. So what I'm saying is over time, to prevent damage, deterioration, yellowing, things like that. You have to be careful with the materials that you choose. So if you do not have any concern about whether it's archival, then none of this would matter to you. But I do, and so I definitely want to use the products that are gonna keep my piece in good condition for a long time. And I'm gonna apply it with the Gesso Magic tool to see how well it covers and whether I can get a smooth layer of glue. I'm also going to have my utility knife handy in case I need it. I'm gonna have a ruler or a T-square that is large enough to use. I'm also gonna have a brayer, and the brayer is gonna allow me to get really good coverage once I put down the glue and the canvas over the top. All right, so I'm gonna grab my new ruler. So this ruler is one that I found right after I did the last dry mounting video. And it is a craft ruler, and it's called a safety cutting ruler. So basically this flap comes up, and that way when I am cutting, this blade cannot slip and hit my hands and cut me. So after that last video, I was like, you know, I like to be very cautious, and I especially want to make sure you're being very cautious. So this ruler is actually 24 inches long, which is perfect for me and the projects that I'm going to be doing. And it's not heavy. I thought it was going to be pretty heavy. It's very lightweight, so that's good too. Now it also has these ridges on the bottom that are supposed to keep it from slipping, and boy, does that work. So that's a good thing. And it also works on my cutting mat. Okay, and the other thing, and lastly, is this cutting mat underneath. So the piece that I'm going to mount today is going to be by Winnie's Picks, because I haven't tried one of their paintings yet. And I'm going to try, you know, this year to do an update on each company that I've discussed. And Winnie's Picks is one of those that I need to test. So let me go ahead and get this unrolled. Now you can see where I did some swatching when I first got this piece. Now their canvases are a different texture. They're a little thick and they roll pretty easily. So ideally, I would probably like to flatten this out before I do anything else with it. But instead, I'm gonna be me, and we're just gonna go with it. Now here is where that glass that I have in that frame is gonna come in handy. I'm gonna remove this backing out of my frame. I'm going to save this piece in case I need it for spacing later. And I'm gonna set the mat aside for another video, or I should have said for another project. All right, so now I'm gonna use this glass carefully as a template. You could also use the opening of the frame, whichever one makes you more comfortable. So once I lay this down, now there's gonna be fingerprints on it. I always clean my glass before I put anything in a frame. So you wanna make sure that you have one of your canvas panels under your piece when you lay it down. And I'm going to use the frame as a guide for marking my opening. This will tell me where I need to place my canvas once I lay it down. I will take a pen and just mark where I need to line the canvas up. This is not going to show. So now I'm going to line up my panel with these outside lines. And we're going to line up the outside lines with the panel as well. So I just want to make sure I'm keeping it straight as possible so that when I flip this over, it's going to have an even amount of white on each side. Now I'm going to take my hand and go along the edge, using my finger kind of just to make a mark on the canvas to make sure that my borders are pretty straight. That way our piece is straight once we get it in the frame. So it looks like it's pretty close to being perfect. I'm going to come this way just a little bit more. Probably didn't need to do that. There we go. Now let's make sure this is straight and this one is straight. Okay. So I'm going to put some weight on here to hold this into place before I start putting my glue on the canvas panel. So I'm going to pour a little bit of this glue out. I know it didn't look like a little bit, but and then I'm going to take my Gesso Magic tool and smooth it out over the entire surface. I don't want to skip any areas because my canvas will bubble in those areas if I miss anything. All right, so I've got that pretty smooth, and now I'm gonna kind of making sure my canvas is stayed in place. I'm gonna smooth it out. We're only gonna do sections at a time, okay? Now, this is when the brayer can come in handy. It will make sure it gets out all bubbles, anything, making sure we have good connection, all the places that I put the glue. I'm gonna hold it down on this side, and let's do some more on this side. I can tell you this Gesso Magic is a lifesaver for this project for sure. Now I am taking it all the way up to the edges. If I get any on my cutting mat, I'm just gonna wipe that off later because it's really important that I don't skip any areas like I talked about. Getting up under here, anywhere there may not have been glue yet. Let's pull it back just a little bit. I'd rather put more glue in one place than not enough. Making sure I get a really good smooth coverage. And putting the brayer on it will also kind of help smooth out any extra lumps and bumps and whatnot. Really, you just need a thin layer of glue. And even though it looks like I'm putting a lot on, I'm making sure it's extremely thin and it's going around the edges as well. All right, so now that that part is smooth, quickly roll this part down like we did on the video with the foam board where it had the adhesive already on it. Okay, now I'm going to get it to about right here, and I'm going to make sure all of this is smooth. Now, once it's on there, let's brayer it as hard as we can to get all the glue to attach to the back of this fabric. Now, we're gonna flip this over, and I'm going to wipe these spills up really fast. Okay, now what I'm gonna do, put the lid back on my glue, keep it nice and fresh. I'm gonna use it again, but I'm gonna use it with the squeeze tip in a minute. So in order to give these corners some to be pretty, see when we fold it, how it's lumpy and all that stuff here? What I'm gonna do is, now that I have folded it, I can see where I need to cut it. And I'm just gonna trim a little bit over like that, so that when I pull this here and I pull this here, my corner is neat, okay? So I'm gonna do that with each corner, treating each one differently because these are a different width over here. So fold it up, crease it, fold it this way and crease it, and then cut along, but leaving yourself a little bit of canvas to come up over the corner. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use my glue, and I'm going to squeeze a bead on the edge right here, because I want to make sure this adheres on the corner, the side, as much as it adheres here. So let's put some more adhesive here. I just want to make sure it's got good holding power, and I'm going to pull it as I am gluing it down, okay? Just to make sure I don't have any air bubbles. The back is not the problem, it's the front. I want to make sure there's no air bubbles on the front or the top or the sides. So I want to make sure I'm pulling out any little potential bubbles out of there. Now, you can also brayer this once you have it down. And I think this time I'm going to show you by using the smaller Gesso Magic tool to put my adhesive on there, just so I can show you another way. All right, so let's go and making sure I'm coming from corner to corner. Now it might seep out a little bit in the corners, but I'd rather it be there than not be there. So let's put it on here. I'll get better smoothing if I put it here. All right. I'm making sure I'm covering the corners and the edges, right? Put a little bit extra on the canvas itself. Now this might get a little messy on the back, but once it dries clear, so you're not gonna see it. I'm gonna pull it in the center and then pull it as I go down, smoothing it out. Now, for those of you who just wanna tape the back, you can do that too. I like the cleanliness of it. I know it's the back, but that's just my preference. I really like the clean lines. So let's finish the other two sides. I will not make you watch that. I should have mentioned, it wouldn't hurt to have a wet paper towel or baby wipe or something handy to wipe off excess glue. You want to take your Gesso Magic sponges and immediately wash them because it is glue. And I want to use them again. All right, so putting my lid on my glue, and this is done. Now I will let it set up for a little bit. It holds better if you brayer it at this point where it's had some time to sit, because when it's sticky, it's gonna hold better. So that is the back of my piece. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I think this is a pretty cool feature, and it might be on all canvases, on all panels, but the title of my painting, the artist, so this is where you could sign it. Even if you sign it on the front, be sure to sign it on the back too. The medium, which would be acrylic paint, the date, and my signature, and this is all going into my frame. Now, when you frame, something simple to remember, when you're putting your piece in your frame, pay attention to where the hardware is for hanging. That'll be the top, if this is a portrait piece, which this one is. But you see, this is the piece that I dry mounted the other day. And you're wondering if I'm adding glass. No, I'm not. The only reason you would add glass is if you had spacers to separate the glass from your art piece. Otherwise, acrylic paintings don't have to have glass. But here is this guy. So this is what he would look like framed. And you see what I was talking about. He fits the frame perfectly. All right, so let's try the other one. And there was still room because I got the frame that had the thickness for the glass and that double matte. The frame is deep enough for this foam board to fit it perfectly. If you get a poster frame, the foam board will not fit in it and the backing won't go on it. Okay, now this is one that I mounted the other day for a video, but I decided to consolidate the videos. I did the exact same technique to put it on matte board that's acid free as I did to do the canvas panel. So you see how it won't go into the frame and stay there? See that? That is why I measured the other day in that other video to show you how to make it fit your frame. So this piece, if I wanted to frame it, I could add a mat to it, but if I'd have to go up to an 18 by 24 and add a thicker mat to put this in a frame, and then my mat could act as a spacer. But this is why we don't push it down to the edges of our opening, our art opening, because it will not fit in the frame now. And you're probably wondering, why did I do it this size? Because the person I want to give this to, he custom frames all his puzzles. And if I send him this piece, he's going to custom frame it. So I went ahead and did it in the way that was easiest by putting it up to the border, because he's always going to use a custom frame. He'll put non-reflective glass on it, and they'll put spacers in it for him, because he used to be my best customer. And I did 38 pieces, I think, for him. And if he's still framing, that's what he likes. So I did not do this one to fit in a 16 by 20 frame off the floor, because I knew that's not what he was going to want. So let's see how our new piece that I did is going to fit in here. Now, you guys, it is a tight fit, but that's what you want. You don't want your piece moving around. So now that I have it in place, if I need to add anything behind here for this extra thickness that I have, let me show you what we can do. So you don't have to, because it's snug, you don't really have to put the glass back in here. I like using the glass as a template, but it can go behind the piece so that it fills up the frame. If I can get it in here without cutting myself. And then if I need this, I can put this back in it, and then I can put this back in, and it should fit perfectly if I can get it straightened up here while I'm talking. Super tricky. You think I know how to do this. I did it all day, every day. And that way the piece fits in our frame perfectly. I'm gonna go ahead and put these on just so I can show you how it looks from the front. And then, ta-da, we have our piece, ready to hang. Now, here's the other thing. You see this down here, it shows the name, but you don't worry about that. Make sure you paint the borders of your piece, okay? This is a great place. If you paint this, you can go back and put your signature down here, so that, but you're never gonna notice the border, because you're gonna bring any of these elements down to cover up the borders that are showing. All right, I hope that made sense. This would look beautiful once it's finished, but that is how you can frame it yourself. That is how you can mount it yourself on a canvas panel and a mat board panel. And I feel like I've shown you every single way to do this today. Now, like I said, use that glass. If you don't put it back in your frame, use it as your template to cut future pieces to size. Now, I know it's kind of hard to save it where it won't get broken, but we used to wrap ours at the frame shop, extra pieces of glass. We would wrap them up with paper and store them. But if you have bubble wrap or a box or something, you could use that too. So I'm going to save my glass for templates. So that first piece that I mounted in method 1 is gonna fit in here the exact same way that the method 2 is gonna fit, that the canvas panel is gonna fit, and that the mat board panel is gonna fit. So you guys, that's it for today. I know this was a lengthy video, but I hope it was super informative and it's gonna help you know what to do when you frame your next piece. Now, I do want to mention that I do have a blog post about framing. It is in depth for framing your paint by numbers and diamond paintings. I think I put a little information in there about diamond paintings, because diamond paintings work differently. And so be sure to check that out. I'll put the link here, but it's also going to be in the bottom in the description, so you can just click it and go to it. And it's going to have everything you need to know about how to frame your piece. Okay? Thank you as always for watching. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share this video if you think there's others who might enjoy it, and join me on Patreon and Facebook. I will see you back soon.